Okay, let's go.
Do it! Just do it! Jump!
I know you've worked with different nursing organizations. How do you find your passion for advocacy or your mission connecting in these different nursing organizations that you work with?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying about nurses aren't really asked to have a say in certain things.
Nurses never get asked about things like, that was most of the complaints I heard from nurses. They never ask us.
And especially nurses who are working at the bedside, who have, direct patient care experience, who are seeing these things in real time. They're not always included in these conversations. As you climb the ladder in the nursing profession, you like yourself, you get into administration or you get into education and academia. As you get higher and higher, that's where influential people start asking questions. But if you think about it, it's kind of really far removed from the reality. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Even me just navigating that in my own role as, hospital-based educator, I know that I'm not the subject matter expert on delivering patient care at the bedside in 2024. I know that. So why on our green earth would I portray myself as, that person or answer on behalf of nurses who are working at the bedside? I can't. And I won't. So being that link between the people who are doing the work right now, right here, and these influential people who are asking questions. Maybe they're not asking questions, who knows? But they still need to know what is happening. They need to know what is being seen. And I think with advocacy, I've learned, through all these different experiences that you and I have been able to attend together, the one thing that is always brought up is the legislators want to hear from their constituents. From the people, and that's been the resounding theme. Yeah. And so when you think of it that way, I am a constituent, I am a nurse, I have this particular insight into these policies that are on the table there. Why not exercise my freedom and civic duty to engage these lawmakers and tell them, this is what's going on. This is what I see. This is what I feel. These are what my patients are saying, with, of course, keeping HIPAA in mind, no identifying things. But there is an ability to do that for our frontline nurses. And I feel that having that level of support and mentorship, if someone is interested in this kind of work that we're doing, to having someone that they can reach out to, I want to bring this up to so-and-so, or how many nurses can identify their own lawmaker in their area? Just things that kind of come up that I feel are really important. And I guess that's where my passion for this work comes in, making sure that other nurses at all levels feel that they are able to exercise their duties as well in advocacy. Yeah, I think that's kind of where all my passion comes from. What about you?
Honestly, there was the script that we had, but then when you started your story, I'm like, oh my gosh, that just made me think about 10 other things I wanted to share and talk about. So I'm sorry for sure. From the script. I think what you say about those influential people within the profession is so resoundingly true that no disrespect to them, but they are so far removed from what is happening at the bedside. And again, too, I am not a frontline nurse anymore, but just knowing about the same struggles I had, and when I moved on to the next level of my career, it was almost like an escape, oh my gosh, I don't have to deal with that anymore. So it's like going into another space, dealing with other challenges, but again, things are so broken in healthcare systems, in hospital systems, and what is it they used to say, you had to put in your time, in med-surg. They made it sound very militaristic, or almost like a war, right? You got to serve your time, and you can move on.
And I still hear those things. Yeah. Even with our new grads, they say the same things, and I'm like, wow, it's 2024, people.
Yeah, yes, and I really feel like even my time, my nursing professors who were 20 years plus out of nursing school at that time, they had the same, serve your 2 years in med surg, or wherever you can get that this wide array of experience before you go into your specialty. I know that there's wonderful nurse residency programs now, which I wish were around back then. But I think they do a long way in preparing nurses. But also, people are much sicker, right? Patients are much more chronically ill, multiple illnesses, comorbidities. So the training has really amped up, but then the level of care that needs to be given has also amped up as well, right?
There's when you add in that factor of like, oh, we're going to do it this way because it's safer, and we're going to implement this technology here that you'll have to learn because it's safer. I mean, is it really? Is it really safer?
So I was going to say something totally different, but
sorry.
The thought of this is the system is very broken. And so people, they still want to serve, they still want to be in healthcare, but only for a prescribed amount of time before they move into something. So how can we fix healthcare where people that are going into it don't feel like they're going to serve their time, like where they can really be passionate about staying at the bedside, feeling that they're supported, feeling that they're going to be able to give the best quality care? Like, what can be built into the infrastructure so that these new nurses, most of them younger, not all of them, sometimes it's second career, right? Where they feel like, okay, the system has my back, I can do this job. Because if we can't have that, the reality is the profession is just going to keep hemorrhaging, right? Like new grad turnover at some of these hospitals is just horrible. And then when you're having to start somewhere else, and your training and your orientation is, if you're constantly switching your job, like how well are you able to hone your skills and your craft, right? So how can the systems that are out there better support nurses so that they can stay at the bedside and take care of people like me when I get to that age? And, hopefully that there's not a nursing shortage. My nurses, I have like 10 other patients that, and they can get to me. So, yeah. So there's like so many perspectives that advocacy touches, right? Like you said, we have the stories. I'm sure this conversation alone, brings up many stories of new grads at the bedside. That's the nursing population you work with, right? Like the new grads or people coming into the profession, they have so many stories of how they're treated in the hospital or how they feel that the profession can be better supported. But our legislators don't know these stories. They don't know what's happening out there, right? It's just kind of this sad revolving door of, oh my gosh, I went through a horrible time in that department, I'm going to go to another department. The problem persists. And I don't think nursing as a whole really wants to fix the problem. It's just kind of like jump out of that fire, go into something else, and just leave it for someone else to fix. And again, that's what I learned at the pandemic. It's not for someone else to fix. It's for us to fix because we know what the problems are. When we have the answers, I think we have the answers. I hope so. We have the answers because if we don't know how to fix our own profession, then who else can we trust out there?
A few moments later.
Asked a lot of questions in that discussion. There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, when you think about like culture, I mean, that's a huge thing that I hear about day in and day out. The culture, or, the nurses eat their young. It's kind of always been that way. And has the pandemic amplified that now that we've returned to like our normal, quote unquote? It really feels like that never happened. Almost like things kind of just went back to the way they were. Of like, you don't know how to do this after I showed you 2 times now. You don't know how to do it. Like, it's those things, and also just, I don't know, like coming together, using some of those, like I talk a lot about like bipartisanship, using some of those skills and some of those tactics within our own profession. Let's put our whatever aside. Let's get to a solution. I know we have a lot of big feelings around these things, but let's get to a solution. At the end of the day, nurses need to protect their license, and patients need to be safe. I mean, those are like 2 basic like non-negotiables in healthcare. And if people can't put aside their own concerns, or whether it's like, ego, whatever, let's get to a solution. But at the end of the day, like we all have to get on the same page. We all are working towards the same things. The louder that we can collectively be through legislature, through our systems and our organizations, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to change these things that we're dealing with right now. But maybe I'm just too
that's a great
high in the sky. Who knows?
No, that's a great point. I mean, just the skills of advocacy, right? They're so applicable to how we deal with each other in the workplace, right? Speaking concisely, get to the point of what you're asking for instead of just complaining or attacking someone. Hearing out the other person and looking for solutions together. You're right; those are just important, like life skills, right?
Well, but even like to that point, like, okay, say someone is bringing out all of their, grievances, for lack of a better word. Being able, as the recipient of that, to put your own bias aside and put your own experiences aside and just listen, collaborate to find like tangible things that can come out of these grievances to change. I mean, that's a really simple solution, but is it really? I don't know. It's hard. Change is hard. I mean, and navigating these things are hard. It's hard. It's hard work, but just like, talking about other things that take a lot of work and, commitment, it's well worth it in the end, the results,
It is. And, coming from the other side of it, I lead people, right? Like I'm their boss. And people come to me with questions. And honestly, I don't have the answers all the time. Like I want to ask them what their solution is because we work on it together. If someone's going to come at me very angry, very upset, and blaming me for something that I didn't even know was an issue, then just naturally, right, you put your guard up on types like that, on things like that. The same goes when you speak to legislators, right? You want to, you come from a place of educating them, like, hey, this is the problem. These are the things that have happened. I want you to make you aware of it so that we can hopefully work towards a solution, right? But I think that's where a lot of the partisanship is happening right now. So it's a lot of blame, a lot of people assuming that the other party knows what the problem is, and not working towards any solutions, right? Not taking that responsibility of, hey, I need to help find the solution as well. The other people have to find the solution. So it's very interesting when you start navigating that landscape and how to talk with people with influence, people that are working with policies, because it's kind of scary. Like I remember the first time I had to talk to my representative, it was very scary. But then when you realize, hey, they are people as well, doing a public service job, right? They're there to serve the public. They really want to know what the issues are out there, but there's like thousands of people talking to them, and it's really the squeakiest wheel in a way, right? Or the people that make the most influential or the most moving case sometimes, right? And so for us as nurses to complain like, oh, they don't care about us, they've forgotten about us, they don't know what's going on. Well, how many nurses are actually out there talking to their legislators, talking to people in these influential positions, telling them what the problem is, what the issue is? And so it's about encouraging our fellow nurses to focus that passion and that energy in complaining within the system, to elevate that energy and bring attention to people who can make a difference. When we hear other people's stories, it just kind of fires us up, right? In our interactions, and it just inspires us to do more. There's a phrase I always think about, and I don't know where I learned it from, but it just always stuck with me. It's like, if you're asking for something, talk to the person that signs the name that signs their name to the checks, right? Because that's the person that's going to be able to make the decisions or call the shots. So I think it's also in advocacy, choosing the right audience, knowing your audience and choosing the right audience.
Yes,
actually, but
also knowing the behind the scenes of all of this is really important too, because like all of the education that you do, those things are so important to have a basic knowledge of. It's easy, well, we're saying it's easy, but even I know it's not easy. But having these conversations with influential people is already in itself kind of nerve-wracking. But if you don't know what you don't know and you're saying this, I recommend that we should do this, and we don't know that it would never pan out that way, kind of puts us at a disadvantage sometimes in having these conversations. So doing that background work, having some insight into how things work is really important too, and also talking about that too, that like politics and money go hand in hand. So really knowing those things and just having those in your back pocket are really just crucial pieces of information, that I feel like are very valuable if you are having these conversations.
Just a reminder to like and subscribe to CitizenNurse News Network.